I'm Steve Dotto. It's moving day here on Dotto Tech Today. Today we're going to make the big switch. Now, if you've watched our shows for any length of time, you know that I got a soft spot for Apple. And we've gone to considerable lengths to show you that the Macintosh is the equal of Windows, matching it in pretty much any field of endeavor. Well, today I'm going to show you how to make the switch if you are inclined to walk the Macintosh side of the street. So we're going to take my life off of this Windows machine here and move it over here onto this nice new Mac. Now I'm going to show you that there's nothing missing in the Mac world. So we got a lot to accomplish today, so we're going to dive right into it. Now, if you're looking at switching from one operating system to another, there's a lot more to consider than the normal migration from one computer to another. Like if you're just moving from a desktop to a notebook computer in the same operating system, you have less decisions to make because you're going to use the same applications. The first thing we need to decide here is how we're going to conduct the productivity side of our life. In the Windows world, I use Microsoft Outlook for all of my email, my calendar, my contact database. I got to decide which application or applications that I want to use on the Mac to accomplish these same tasks. Now, there's several choices that I can consider. Microsoft has an application that pretty closely mirrors Outlook called Microsoft Entourage. It's part of the Microsoft Office suite on the Mac, and it would make a pretty good choice. But that's not the route that I'm going to choose to follow. There's nothing wrong with Entourage, works great, but I want to use the native Apple iLife apps as much as possible. I like how they integrate into each other, so I'm going to use iCal for my calendaring, Address Book for my contacts, and Apple Mail for my email. In the Macintosh operating system, they integrate together brilliantly, and integration of these data types is really what makes Outlook itself such a useful tool. So now comes the big challenge in the conversion process, taking all of my content and information out of Outlook and then moving it into these Apple applications. Moving information out of Outlook is not, in my opinion, a really user-friendly experience. It's not that it's really too difficult, but it's not really intuitive. And if you only do it every few years or so, which is normally what you do if you're migrating from one computer to another, well, then the process isn't fresh in your mind when you go to move the information. Let me show you a few of the challenges you might face. I've got Outlook open here, and in order to export information out of Outlook, I choose Import and Export under the File menu, and there I choose my task is to export to a file. I go to the next stage, and now I've got to start selecting my data and then exporting it. And the type of files that I can create are basic data files like a DOS or Windows file, which is just going to be comma-separated text or tab-separated text, Microsoft Access, which is a dedicated database, Excel, which is in a spreadsheet. It's pretty good for sorting information, but I'm going to have to then re-import it from Excel. The PST format is the personal file folder format of Microsoft. That's what I would typically use if I'm going to export stuff from Outlook to another computer with Outlook on it. Works great within the Windows world, doesn't work great going cross-platform into the Macintosh world, and then I have tab-separated values for DOS and Windows. So I don't really have good choices here for exporting the data. I've tried to do this process manually in the past myself several times, and I haven't really made out all that well. So I went out searching the net for an easier way to convert. Now, I found two websites to help us out. They're actually two different products. The first from a very cool company named Dotto. I like the company name. Their product is actually a piece of hardware, a cable, a dedicated USB cable that connects your PC to your Mac, and some software that facilitates the transfer, and it works pretty well from all reports. But it costs about 150 bucks. And I was thinking 150 bucks just to move content from one computer to another seems kind of dear, so I kept on looking. And I found this from the company called Little Machines. Little Machines has a piece of software called Outlook to Mac, which is 10 bucks. 10 bucks. Couldn't go wrong. So I ordered it online. They sent me a code. I installed it, and it works just perfectly. Let me show you how it works. Instead of having to work within Outlook and do all of the exporting, I simply launch Outlook to Mac, and it now launches a wizard which really walks me through the entire process. Now, I should give you one note. Before you start exporting all of your data, you should spend some time in Outlook and clean up all of your data. Make sure that you've deleted all the email that you don't want to move across, because otherwise you're just going to move across junk. No point in moving junk. So clean up your email, clean up your calendar, make sure you don't have any duplicate records in your database, in your contact database, and clean out all the old contacts that you don't need. So spend a little bit of time spring cleaning your content before you go to move it. And once you're ready to go, launch Outlook to Mac, and it starts up. It's going to save all of the content into a folder called My Outlook Files. I'll need to make a note of that because I'm going to have to copy those files onto some media later to copy them over to the Mac. And then I just basically go through and answer questions and make little decisions. Which email folders do I want to move across? I've got a lot of email folders here, but I'm just going to move my inbox across, and it'll bring them over as folders, which will go into Apple's Mail as individual folders. And I can also choose to limit the email coming across by date. If you only want to receive, say, the last month's email, so I'm going to say everything from September 1st of this year, I'm going to import. You can skip larger file attachments. If you've got a lot of attachments that have been sent to you, you can say, I don't need all those video files or those large photos. I've got them backed up somewhere else. You can choose not to add the large attachment. And you can also skip certain file types, especially ones that are germane just to the Windows operating system. Then you choose your contact database to send through, all the contacts that you want, and now you choose how you want those contacts copied across. Email is going to go straight into a standard email format for the Apple Mail program, but we can choose to go either vCard, which gives us a vCard format, an industry standard for transferring business card information, or the Apple Address Book format, which is what I'm going to choose because I'm going to use the Apple Address Book, and then my calendar appointments. Now, I actually did pretty well in moving all of the other data across manually. Being able to copy my email worked pretty well, and being able to copy my contact information, I was able to do that because I'm fairly technically competent. Moving my calendar, I found to be a nightmare. I was completely unable to manually convert it over into the Macintosh world. Till I used this, and it was so easy. I wanted it to move into iCal. I said, yes, I only want to convert appointments coming up. I didn't want all my past dates brought across. Then we're ready to start. When we click Start, it's going to start converting all the files. But the first thing that happens is Microsoft Outlook freaks out because it says, wait a minute, somebody's trying to contact me and starting to ask me for information, and I don't know who they are. Well, I'm going to allow access for 10 minutes. It won't take 10 minutes, but we'll give it 10 minutes. Say yes, and now, Outlook to Mac, we can see it here just zipping through, and first of all, converting my email, then converting my contacts, then converting my calendar, and saving them all to files. Now, what I need to do next is I got to take those files and copy them onto my new Mac. Now, there's a few different ways that I can do this. I could, first of all, email them to myself, or I can burn a CD, which is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a few minutes before I do that, though, and I'm going to get the rest of my documents that I want to move prepared as well, such as my word processing files, my PowerPoint presentations, my Excel documents, all of my working documents that I'm going to want for work-related stuff, I'm going to copy onto the CD, and I'm going to move it across. Other things, my media files like my music or my photos, I'm going to deal with those separately, and we'll talk about that later. Right now, I'm primarily concerned with work-related content. So I'm going to gather all of this content together, and then I'm going to burn a CD. When we return, I'm going to fire up the Mac with a burned CD, and we're going to start importing all the data from my Windows machine into my new Mac. I've burned a CD on the PC with all of my files on it, and I'm ready to import them into my Mac. Now, I've set up this PowerBook as though it's a brand new Mac. Set myself up as a new user, so this is pretty much the exact process that you're going to go through in first setting up your new computer. I've done a few things already, though. I've installed Microsoft Office in this PowerBook, and I've also got the network configured. It's running Apple's Airport wireless networking software, so it was just a very quick process to get it up and online. So other than that, it's pretty much a virgin computer, so let's get importing. We're going to start with my contacts. Now, here's the CD that I burned. If I open it up, we'll find here's my Outlook files. Remember, that's where the Outlook to Mac saved all of my contact, email, and calendar information. I've got some presentation files, and I also have some word processing files here that I want to move across. But as I said, we're going to begin with the contacts. So I open up my contacts, and there's my database of contacts. Now, I'm going to open up Apple's address book here, and we'll see that there's just a couple of names in it. It automatically creates a contact for me as the new user of the computer, but other than that, there's no contacts in it. Now, there's a couple of ways that we can import the contacts. We can choose Import from the File menu, but there's even an easier way. All we do is we grab the contacts on the CD, drag them across into the Apple address book, and drop it. And watch this. This is brilliant. Bink. It goes, and there it's importing all the cards. That's that fast to add 835 new contacts. When I say OK, the address book's going to look dramatically different. Bink, and there's now 835 contacts. Suddenly, I'm a popular person. Got our contacts in. Let's keep going. We're on a roll. Next thing we want to add is our calendar. Let's open iCal, Apple's calendaring application. And I might have a lot of friends, but they don't seem to want to spend much time with me. My calendar is wide open. let's address that. Let us go back into the CD, and let's go to the calendar. And we can do the exact same process. We can all import it from the file menu if we choose to, but instead I'm going to just drag the calendar across on to iCal, and you see it turns into a little plus there. When I release it, it imports all of my appointments coming up, and now let's view it a month and see, good. I have some appointments. I have people who want to spend time with me. I've got my calendar imported already. Pretty quick so far. Final thing we're going to do is import our email, and I open for that Apple's email software. And let's do the classic import for this one, since dragging and dropping has been, we've shown that. Let's go import mailboxes, and I'm going to import the mail for Mac OS X. We continue on. It's going to ask me where those files are. They're on this CD. I go into My Outlook files, Mail, and there's the mailbox. I choose that, and now it will import those all into here, into the import mailbox, and we're done. That quickly, we have brought all of our information from the Windows world completely over to the Mac. Now, I got to show you how it all integrates, because when I was talking earlier, I mentioned that the brilliance of Outlook is how all of the data types integrate, how when we're in our email software, we gain access to all of our contact information. On the Mac, it works at a system level, and so let me show you how it all fits together. Let's go back into our calendar, and let's say that I want to make a new appointment. I want to have a meeting with somebody. So I'm going to create here a new appointment. Under the File menu, New Event. When I create a new event, if we look over here in attendees, let's say I want to have a meeting with my good friend John Dante from Apple, because I like my new Mac so much. So I'm going to start typing in John's name. Now watch what happens. As I type in John's name, you see it's bringing up all the Johns I know. It's because it's talking to my database. It's talking to my contact list, and as soon as I hit the D, it says, oh, it's got to be one of two here. I actually want it to be with John Dante, and there it is. So now John Dante is in my calendar, and I can access all of his information from the calendar if I want. That's the beauty of the integration of the iApps at a system level. The calendar talking effortlessly to my address book. And as well as the calendar talking effortlessly to my address book, so will the mail application. Let's go in and let's create a new message, and let's address it to John, and the same thing happens. As I type in John's name, up it comes, and I'm able to send him an email without having to know all of his address information. I just have to know his name, and I can send him an email. Right at the heart of this entire system is that address book, where we enter the people's data once, and then we can access it from any appropriate application later on. And this will extend beyond just our email and our calendaring applications. We can also marry this information to a Bluetooth cell phone if we happen to have a Bluetooth phone and we want to move all of our contacts over to that. It's really a nice level of integration that the Mac OS gives us, and that's why I chose the iApps instead of one of the vertical applications. Let's move along. Let's get to the document side of this whole conversion. I've already installed Microsoft Office on this computer, as I said, and here are all my files on the CD. All of my word processing files, my spreadsheet, my, in this case, PowerPoint files. So let's open up PowerPoint and take a look at how my presentation files come across. You see, the beauty of Microsoft Office is the files are completely compatible Windows and Macintosh. No changes are needed at all. So all of your formatting, all of your fonts, all of your preferences come across with the file, including, for instance, in this PowerPoint presentation, I can go right down to any of my slides, and if I wanted to, I could give this presentation directly from the Mac right away as soon as I've imported it. Take a look. All of the transitions occur, all of the graphics are there, the fonts are there. It's absolutely perfect. So in real time, we're about an hour into our conversion project, and I'm up and running. All of my important data is now living on this PowerBook. My contacts are there, my calendar, my email, all of my documents. As far as work's concerned, I am rocking. I could hit the road with this PowerBook right now, give a presentation, stay in touch by email, do all of my work, and it hasn't taken me any more time than setting up a Windows notebook to hit the road with. We have just killed the #1 misconception about the Macintosh, that it doesn't work in a business world. Obviously, it does. Outlook completely migrated to my Mac for an investment of $10. That's not bad. When we return, we'll add a few much-needed peripherals to this Macintosh.
Want more information about the items we highlight on the show? Then make sure you drop by our website at dottotech.com. You'll find details about the products we cover, the latest news in technology, and lots of cool features.
Okay, we need to finish setting up this PowerBook. Now, one thing that I don't like is Apple's one-button mice. I know all the Mac heads out there are yelling at the screen right now, Steve, how can it be true? It's true. I'm a two-button guy. I'll actually take more buttons if I can get them. The more, the merrier. So the first peripheral that I want to add to this Macintosh is a mouse. In fact, a wireless mouse. Now, over my Windows PC, I had one of these, so I want to use it again. This is Microsoft's IntelliMouse Explorer 2.0. It's a wireless mouse, the whole whack of buttons. You got your left mouse button, you got your right mouse button, you got a whole bunch of buttons on the side, and for your wheel, it goes up and down, and get this, it also goes side to side, so you can navigate around the screen effortlessly with this thing. How you connect it to the Mac, or to the PC for that matter, is through a little receiving unit. Now, this receiving unit works for both the wireless mice and keyboards. So let's plug it in. Now, this is a technically challenging procedure. I'm going to take it, plug in the USB port, and I'm done. It works as soon as you plug it in. Watch, I push the right mouse button and I get my context-sensitive menus. I can go around, I can open things. Let's open up Excel and show you that even the wheel works. Scrolling up and down, side to side. Look, it's scrolling side to side, straight out of the box. Now, if you do need to program the IntelliMouse Explorer, or you add a wireless keyboard that you want to program, you can go to Microsoft's website and you can download the drivers that allow you to customize the software, customize what the buttons do on the mice and keyboards. Right there, for the IntelliMouse 5.1 for the Mac, download it, and then you can customize it to your heart's content. So we now have a wireless mouse, and I can navigate around the screen. I'm a much happier camper right now. Next thing we need to do is connect a printer and a scanner. Now, I'm going to use this nice little Epson multifunction that we've been using in the office on our Windows machines. So I've already installed the software. It takes about 5 or 10 minutes for all the software to install on the Mac, but as soon as it's done, we end up with the Epson Smart Panel. You just take the USB cable, plug that in to the USB port, and open the Smart Panel. Smart Panel opens. This is the exact same as we saw when we used this multifunction on the Windows side. We can scan documents, we can print them, we can use, there's media card slots in the front of this that we can plug media cards from our digital cameras in. All that transfers directly over to the Mac. It is exactly the same as it was in the Windows world. So from a productivity side now, I've got my mouse that's working just fine, and I have my multifunction device. So printer, fax, scanner, all in one. It's all working just fine. So I'm set up and ready to go. The last thing that I want to install is a PDA, and I love this Tungsten T3. This is a really nice, very popular personal digital assistant, so let's install that. Now, I haven't even started the process of installing it. I wanted to walk through it all with you. Now, when I unpacked my T3, I ended up with a Read This First book, which I suppose I should read first before I install it. And they have, as well as a Windows installation CD, they have a Macintosh installation CD. So let's get going. The first thing we do is we actually pop the CD in, and we can get going. I'm going to unplug the multifunction device now because I'm going to want to plug the T3 in here in a few moments. Oh, I'm so excited. I will launch the installer, choose English, and start the installation process. Now it's just basically answering the questions as we move through the installer. All of the different pieces that the Palm needs in order to talk to the Macintosh are now being installed. Once it's completed this, it's going to restart the Mac, and I'll be able to actually configure and marry the Tungsten to the Macintosh. The Palm software is now installed on my Mac. It has rebooted. Now, when the Palm software installs, it installs something called the Palm Desktop, which is Palm's own productivity tool. It's their own calendar and their own contact database. Since we want to use the iApps, Apple's address book and iCal, we have to change one setting because the Palm is preset to sync with its own Palm Desktop. Syncing is when we exchange data back and forth. So we have to create what's called a conduit so that our new Apple iApps can talk to the Palm so they can transfer all the data across so we have our data when we travel. We do that by going to Apple's website and downloading something called their iSync conduit. You'll see that in a second. Let's go into this HotSync Manager, which is where we configure this all. And you go in there to Conduit Settings, and this is iSync Conduit. This is what I've just installed. We only have to do this once. The very first time, you go into Conduit Settings, and you have to enable iSync for the Palm device. Once this is done, you say OK, quit the HotSync Manager, and then we can launch something called iSync. Now, iSync is the application that we're going to use for all of our syncing needs, whether we're going to sync later on with a cell phone, or in this case, we're going to sync with a Palm. Syncing, once again, is when all the data that we've just imported moves across to the Palm. I just select my device in the iSync window. The Palm has appeared here in the iSync window, and here we can adjust any settings we want as far as how our data transfers back and forth between the Palm. Now, to actually exchange the data from my database and my calendar with the Palm, all I do is press here on the Hot Sync button on the Palm Cradle, and now a connection happens between the Palm and the Mac. We can see it happening on both the Palm and the Mac at the same time. iSync now kicks in and starts to move it. Now, this is going to take a few seconds because it's moving, what, 800 names from my address book, and all of my extensive social calendar is moving across. But once it's all done, all that information will be on my Palm. And anytime I make any changes on the Palm, at the same time, it will get transferred back to my calendar here on the Mac. So as soon as this is done, I'll show you that the addresses have come through. But you see, we've got a complete solution now. We've got our multifunction device all set up and running. We have our peripherals as far as having a nice wireless mouse, plus our important productivity tool, a PDA. We have that ready to travel with you. The Mac is now well equipped and ready to serve me in all of my business and personal needs. The bar at the bottom of the Mac screen is called a dock. It's a dynamic and flexible navigation tool. You store your commonly used applications in the dock and launch them with a click of the mouse. Adding a new application or file is as easy as drag and drop. There's all sorts of options as to how the dock is displayed, so you can customize it to suit both your work style and your lifestyle. iSync is finished. Now all of my contacts, all of my calendar information is moved across into the Palm, so I'm ready to do business. There's still a few things left to do before I'm completely finished migrating to the Mac. My last step is importing my media files. In my case, I'm going to spend some time sorting all my photos and then backing them up onto CD and then using those backups to transfer the collection to the Mac. As far as music's concerned, I can transfer the music to iTunes through the same process, copying them onto CD, then transferring them that way. iTunes will catalog, store, and play back all my MP3s very nicely. Once those tasks are complete, I'll be done. Migrated to the Mac in just a few hours of work, and much of that time was spent sorting and cleaning up my data for transfer. As far as I'm concerned, I'm back in business. Everything I did in Windows, I can now do on the Mac. Anyone communicating with me or working on projects with me will see no difference. They won't even know I've switched. The connected world we live in is really operating system agnostic. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Dotto Tech.